Kelly Thomas.
What are women worth?
The Revolution, Reaction, and Reform of Women in the Workforce in World War II. Oh my, look at this. I haven't seen this stuff in years. Can't believe I kept my old diary. I remember starting this the day that Jack left for the Army Air Corps. That was, March 16th, 1943. Today, Carolyn and I stood on the platform with tears in our eyes as we watched Jack wave from the window of the crowded train. Poor Carolyn doesn't understand where Daddy is gone. She is only 2 after all. I remember when my own father went off to fight in the Great War. My mother had to raise all of us 5 kids while working as a telephone operator. It was a hard time for all of us, yet the women seemed to come alive with the reaction of working on the home front. Talking about all this makes me wonder what's going to happen to me and Carolyn during this war. I've decided to start this diary so that when Jack returns, I can tell him everything he missed while he was away. March 21st, 1943. Louise came over today.
Oh, Rosie, you won't believe who I met at work today. There are 3 new women who were just hired in the actual factory. Not a secretary like me. They're going to do the work that men do. I've been working at Grumman since 1939, and I can tell you this is truly a revolution. The men's reaction isn't too positive. They say that women are unfit to work in the workforce. I even heard one man say that we should go back to our kitchens. Well, I was thinking that we could apply for a job in the factory. I'm getting pretty bored sitting behind a desk, and you don't seem to have much to do.
Well, Carolyn...
No, they have a freedom shift where you would only have to work every other day. I've even heard the government is considering a draft for women to work in industry, so why not just sign up? Can't believe you haven't seen the posters, Rosie. They're all up and down your street. Let's go on a walk. Look, it's Rosie the Riveter. She's strong, independent, and works in an aircraft factory. You could be just like her.
Well, I don't know. Carolyn keeps me pretty busy.
Look, the girl he left behind is still behind him. You should be behind Jack 100%. Maybe if you join the working revolution, you'll even bring him home sooner.
I think he would rather me just stay home, you know?
No, he wouldn't. Anyway, that doesn't convince you. This one will. If you don't go to work, we'll lose the war and the Nazis and Japs will take over the world.
That is something to consider.
Definitely. Today in 1943, 36% of women are in the workforce. There are 500,000 women working in aircraft factories alone. Don't you want to be one of them? Just yesterday, a memo came across my desk that said about 30% of Grumman's wartime workforce is women.
Well, this really does sound thrilling, Lou, but I don't have any sort of education past high school. Why would they hire me?
Don't worry, Rose. Most factories don't require any experience. If you get hired at Grumman, they'll even train you at aviation school for 6 to 10 weeks.
It would be nice to earn my own paycheck.
Exactly. Unskilled factory workers get paid even more than teachers or secretaries.
March 30th, 1943. I decided to take Louise's advice and apply for the factory job at Grumman Aircraft. The physical exam was so humiliating, but I passed.
How old are you, Mrs. Taylor?
I'm 26, sir.
That sounds fine. Our average age is 36, but we even have some girls straight out of high school. I see here in your application that you would like to apply for the freedom shift. Why would that be?
Well, I have a 2-year-old daughter, sir.
Have you heard of our wartime nurseries? There are 3 in nearby communities that accommodate 50 children between the ages of 2 and 5. It's only 50 cents a day. I don't mean to be pushy, but your wages would be better if you took on a normal shift. You'd most likely make between 60 and 90 cents an hour. Normal days are 10 hours, and you would be paid every Friday.
Could you give me more information on how to sign my daughter up for the nursery?
Yes, of course. Well, Mrs. Taylor, I think you're perfect for this job. Here's your uniform. Work starts promptly at 8. My gosh, these women have caused me so much hassle. I've had to reform my factory, sending for new training materials, and even install new bathrooms. But they have proven well worth this trouble. They're better than men for jobs calling for finger work. They'll stick on a tedious assembly line long after the men quit. It's funny about women. They're more conscientious than men. On the testing machines, nothing gets by them unless it's right.
March 31st, 1943. Today was my first day of work. A young girl named Marie showed me around the factory, which seems to be in good condition. She advised me to find a pair of hardy slacks and sturdy low-heeled shoes. Turns out the uniforms are not strictly enforced, and since they were made for men, they're not very comfortable. She also told me I should put my hair under a turban. Management would assume no risk for me if I were scalped by whirling machinery.
Rose, put your goggles on. You're going to get chewed out if you don't wear them. Injuries are pretty costly for the company, and you wouldn't want them to have to pay anything extra for you.
Oh, right, because I'm getting paid so much as it is. That little boy, barely out of high school, gets paid $1.25 an hour. And here I am, a 26-year-old mother, getting paid 70 cents for the same work.
I know, that's the worst part of industrial work. The equal pay for equal rights principle is far from accepted here. Time and again, the maximum rate paid to women on comparable operations is lower than the minimum rate paid to men working on the same machine and same part. We revolutionaries need to protest and cause companies to reform their unjust wages.
June 3rd, 1943. As the days turn into weeks, I am beginning to enjoy my work more and more. I'm truly happy to be serving the United States. I also feel as though my new working friends and I are really causing a revolution. We middle-class women are changing things for all women by insisting on the reform of employment conditions. A new type of worker has been created.
Time for lunch, Rosie Derivative.
Hey, Mary, did you hear what happened in Virginia the other day?
No, what? Is she okay?
Far from it. A piece of steel dropped on her feet and severed them from her body. There was no outcry or fuss at all. I wanted to help, but everyone just kept on working silently.
I know that sounds crazy, Rose, but that's what has to happen when you're working for something as important as the Army. Before you got here, there was a real problem with some of the male employees.
What do you mean?
Well, there was this attractive young girl, and they were pretty brutal to her. She took them to court, and they got charged for sexual harassment. That's why we all have to wear the same exact uniforms as the men, so we are indistinguishable.
Is that also why there are those gray-haired factory chaperones in the ladies' room to catch the supposedly distracting women?
Yes.
November 17th, 1943. I have been working at Grumman for almost 8 months. I have met many women at the factory that are working as many as 70 hours a week. Some even skip church on Sundays to work extra. There are others like us working at steel, lumber mills, and hospitals. Some are even becoming builders, mechanics, and farmers. Working in aircraft factories is becoming more natural for women, so the negative reaction is fading. I am really enjoying the work I'm doing, and I'm earning enough money to keep up with Carolyn's needs. But somehow, when you get working, it's more than the money. You learn about the war and you feel different about a lot of things. Now it can be seen our entire manpower problem is most acutely a problem in woman power. I knew many of my neighbors had reacted negatively when I joined the revolution, but finally Mrs. Walker was the one who confronted me about it.
Rose, off to work already? Still can't believe you're working in that factory and leaving Carolyn to grow up in a nursery.
Mrs. Walker, there's nothing to be worried about. Carolyn's being looked after. I'm working at Grumman so she has a roof over her head and won't be hungry.
Well, all that I'm going to say is I do not approve. It is unacceptable, not to mention irresponsible, for you to leave your daughter when her father is already away. Oh, and Rose, have you heard of the health risks that come along with working in a factory? I heard on the radio that all that riveting caused breast cancer.
That's just a rumor. The factory's very safe. And for once, I feel like I'm making a difference in the world. I'm helping to create things that will bring the soldiers home sooner. Oh, Mrs. Walker, don't you want to see all the men come home safe?
Of course! I care about our soldiers as much as you do. But you don't see me running off to work in a factory. I'm still doing what I have been for the past 25 years without all the praise and publicity like you young revolutionary riveters.
Well, Mrs. Walker, a woman's place may be in the home during peacetime, but under present war conditions, the pretty sex is just as much at home in an aircraft factory. I'm going to be late for work, so if you excuse me.
Rose has no idea what this foolishness is doing to her family. A new form of broken home condition is arising, where both parents are out of the home working. There is no way to replace a mother in a home. Break down the home life, and you break down the very foundation of your country itself. I hope Rose sees some sense and comes back to where she belongs.
August 14th, 1945. I was at home after a long day in the factory when President Truman came over the radio.
I have received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government in reply to the message forwarded to that government by the Secretary of State on August 11th. I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies unconditional surrender of Japan. In the reply, there is no qualification. Arrangements are now being made for the formal signing of surrender terms at the earliest possible moment. Proclamation of B.J. Day must wait upon formal signing of surrender terms by Japan.
The war is over. Jack is coming home. August 15th, 1945. Today, Mr. Turner held a company meeting to inform us since the war was over and there is not a high demand for planes anymore, the company will be laying off. He said,
"It is time to look around and remember all the many sacrifices and great deeds performed on the home front. There are many men and women who deserve a great deal of praise for their work in wartime, and you are all one of them."
Mr. Turner told us that although we would be losing our jobs, our reaction to the call for help has proved us to be dutiful and loyal workers.
And Grumman has accepted the woman worker forever.
September 23rd, 1945. Everywhere I go, I am seeing more and more propaganda against the woman worker. They are constantly being depicted as brides, mothers, and contented housewives. I love to work, and I'm so frustrated. But at the same time, I feel as though Carolyn needs me. Is she suffering because I have been working? Mr. Turner sent all of the women who had worked under his management during the war a letter. It read,
Dear ladies, may I say that it is women like you, with a high resolve and patriotic spirit, that are making civilian history. In this war, as in all wars, women can and do accept responsibilities. You all did your jobs, modestly, humbly, but well, and I could not let this splendid effort go by without a personal note of thanks.
Jack was rehired by Grumman because of his dedication to the company before he was drafted. Although the majority of the women who had worked in war industries did return home to be full-time mothers, we still caused permanent reforms in industry as a whole. We changed factories with our common sense, as well as gained the respect of society as capable full-time employees. In fact, after the baby boom of the early 1950s, women began to return to the workforce. The revolution of women into the workforce has even extended until today, where 49% of the workforce is women, almost equivalent to the supposed superior sex.
Bravo!